Grandma uses social media to reconnect with her grandkids. What she discovered online shocked the entire family. Hello, welcome, leave a like, subscribe, activate notifications, and enjoy this story. She had always been the pillar of strength for her family, the quiet force that held everyone together. But as the years went by, something began to shift. The laughter that once echoed through her home faded, replaced by an overwhelming silence that clung to every corner. One day, in the midst of her loneliness, she stumbled upon a tool she never thought she'd use: social media. Determined to bridge the growing distance between herself and her beloved grandchildren, she ventured into this new world with trembling hands and a hopeful heart. But what started as an innocent attempt to reconnect would soon unravel a truth so shocking. It would shake the very foundation of her family. What did she find lurking in the shadows of the digital world? And why did it leave her questioning everything she thought she knew? This is a story of love, loss, and the unimaginable secrets that can tear a family apart. Brace yourself, because what you're about to witness will leave you breathless and longing for more. The soft creaking of an old rocking chair echoed through the empty living room of a modest suburban home in Millbrook, Alabama. Maria Thompson, a 75-year-old grandmother with silvery hair and kind eyes etched with worry lines, gazed out the window at the quiet street. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across her lawn, reminding her of how quickly time had passed. Maria's trembling hands clutched a framed photograph, its glass smudged with fingerprints from countless hours of longing. The image captured a moment frozen in time, a chaotic Thanksgiving dinner from just 5 years ago. Her grandchildren's faces beamed with laughter, mashed potatoes smeared across cheeks, while she stood in the background, arms wide open, ready to embrace the joyful chaos. Now the house stood eerily silent. No pitter-patter of little feet, no squeals of delight, no urgent cries of "Nana." The absence of those sounds was deafening, a silence that screamed of loss and disconnection. Maria's eyes drifted to her outdated flip phone on the side table. Its screen was blank, devoid of the messages and calls she desperately yearned for. She thought back to her last conversation with her oldest grandson, Michael, nearly 6 months ago. "Sorry, Nana," he had said, his voice tinny through the phone's poor speaker. "We're just so busy these days. I'll try to call more often, I promise." But the promise remained unfulfilled, like so many others before it. Maria's heart ached with a pain that felt almost physical. She wondered if her grandchildren even thought of her anymore, or if she had become nothing more than a fading memory, as obsolete as the technology she clung to. A sudden gust of wind rattled the window, startling Maria from her reverie. She placed the photograph back on the mantel, her arthritic fingers lingering on the smiling faces. With a deep sigh that seemed to carry the weight of her loneliness, she made her way to the kitchen. As she prepared her solitary dinner, a microwaved TV meal that tasted of cardboard and regret, Maria's gaze fell upon her neighbor's house across the street. Through the window, she could see the glow of screens, hear the faint laughter carried on the evening breeze. The Johnsons' grandkids visited often, always glued to their phones but present nonetheless. An idea began to form in Maria's mind, as fragile and tentative as a spark in the darkness. What if she could bridge this divide? What if she could step into their world, even if it terrified her? With shaking hands, Maria reached for the phone book and dialed a number she never thought she'd need. "Hello, Sarah?" she said when her young neighbor answered. "It's Mrs. Thompson from across the street. I was wondering, could you help me with something?" The next afternoon, Sarah sat beside Maria on the floral-patterned couch, patiently guiding her through the maze of social media. Maria's brow furrowed in concentration as she created accounts on platforms with strange names like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. "Now, let's find your grandkids," Sarah said, her fingers flying across the screen of Maria's new tablet, a gift she had treated herself to, despite the guilt of the expense. One by one, familiar faces appeared on the screen. Michael, now 22, his profile filled with pictures of college parties and study sessions. Emma, 19, her page a kaleidoscope of artsy photos and impassioned posts about climate change. And then there was Lucas, the youngest at 17, whose profile made Maria's heart skip a beat. Unlike his siblings' vibrant pages, Lucas' feed was sparse and melancholic. The most recent photo showed him alone on a street corner, his hoodie pulled low over his face, eyes distant and troubled. The caption read, "Sometimes, the loudest screams are the ones no one hears." Maria's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. "Oh, Lucas," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "What's happened to you, my sweet boy?" Sarah, sensing the shift in mood, gently patted Maria's arm. "Social media can be tricky, Mrs. Thompson. Sometimes people only show one side of themselves online." But Maria couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As Sarah bid her goodbye, promising to check in soon, Maria found herself unable to look away from Lucas' photo. The boy who once climbed trees in her backyard and begged for extra cookies now looked like a stranger, a lost soul crying out for help. With trembling fingers, Maria typed out a comment. "Lucas, sweetheart, it's Nana. I miss you. Please call me if you need anything." She hit send, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. Would he respond? Would any of them? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across Maria's living room, she refreshed the page again and again. The silence of her home seemed to press in around her, broken only by the soft tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Suddenly, a small red notification appeared. Maria's breath caught in her throat as she clicked on it, her eyes widening at the message that appeared. "Nana, I can't talk now, but there's something you need to know. Something happened last year. Something bad. I don't know who to trust anymore." Maria's hand shook as she read the words over and over. What could have happened? Why hadn't anyone told her? A mixture of concern and determination welled up inside her. She may be old, she may be out of touch, but she was still a grandmother. And grandmothers don't give up on their grandchildren. As night fell over the quiet suburban street, Maria Thompson sat bathed in the blue glow of her tablet screen. The silence in her home no longer felt empty, it crackled with purpose. She had taken the first step into a world she barely understood, driven by a love that transcended generations and technology. Little did she know, this was only the beginning. The journey ahead would unravel secrets, test bonds, and force a family to confront truths they had long buried. And at the center of it all was a grandmother, armed with nothing but determination and a newfound digital connection, ready to fight for the family she feared she had lost. The grandfather clock struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the house. But for Maria, a new day had already begun, a day that would change everything. As the first rays of sunlight crept through the curtains, Maria was already awake, her eyes red-rimmed from a night of restless sleep. The weight of Lucas's cryptic message hung heavy in her mind. She shuffled to the kitchen, her slippered feet dragging across the worn linoleum floor, and started her morning routine on autopilot. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling the silent house with its familiar aroma. Maria's gaze drifted to the refrigerator door, covered in faded photographs held by souvenir magnets from happier times. Family trips to Disney World, camping adventures in the Smoky Mountains, backyard barbecues where laughter flowed as freely as sweet tea. How had they drifted so far apart? With shaky hands, she reached for her tablet, nearly knocking over her coffee mug in her haste. The device came to life, illuminating her worried face in its soft glow. She navigated to her grandchildren's profiles, determined to piece together the puzzle of their lives. Michael's page was a whirlwind of activity. Photos of fraternity parties, study groups, and campus events flooded his timeline. In every image, he wore the same broad smile, surrounded by friends. Maria's heart swelled with pride at his accomplishments, but a pang of sadness hit her as she realized how little she knew about his daily life. Emma's profile was next. Her granddaughter's passion for environmental causes shone through in every post. Pictures of climate rallies, volunteer work at animal shelters, and impassioned essays about sustainability filled her feed. Maria felt a mixture of admiration and guilt. When had Emma become so driven, so focused on changing the world? And why hadn't she been there to support her? But it was Lucas's page that truly broke her heart. Unlike his siblings' vibrant timelines, Lucas's feed was a stark contrast of emptiness and melancholy. Weeks would pass between posts, each one more cryptic and concerning than the last. A photo of a lone tree in winter, bare branches reaching toward a gray sky. Caption: "Some things can't be mended." A blurry shot of a streetlight in the fog. Caption: "Lost in the in-between." Maria's finger hovered over the screen, desperate to reach out, to bridge the chasm that had grown between them. But what could she say? How could she help when she didn't even know what was wrong? As she scrolled through months of posts, a pattern emerged. Lucas was consistently absent from family gatherings and events. Birthday celebrations, holiday dinners, even casual outings, all documented without a trace of her youngest grandchild. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Lucas wasn't just distant. He was excluded. With newfound determination, Maria tapped out a private message to Lucas. "Sweetheart, it's Nana. I'm worried about you. Can we talk? Maybe we could video chat? I'd love to see your face." Minutes ticked by, feeling like hours. Maria refreshed the page repeatedly, jumping at every notification sound. Finally, a response appeared. "Okay, Nana, give me an hour." Maria's heart raced as she fumbled with the tablet. Setting up the video call app Sarah had shown her. When Lucas's face appeared on the screen, she had to stifle a gasp. The boy, no, young man before her was a shadow of the vibrant child she remembered. Dark circles underlined his eyes, and his usual mop of unruly hair hung limp and unkempt. "Hi, Nana," Lucas said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, Lucas," Maria breathed, fighting back tears. "It's so good to see you. How are you, sweetheart?" Lucas's eyes darted away from the camera. I'm okay, Nana. How are you?" "I'm sorry I haven't called in a while." Maria wanted to reach through the screen and gather him in her arms, to smooth away the worry lines that had no place on a 17-year-old's face. "Don't you worry about that now. I'm just glad we're talking." "Lucas, honey, is everything all right? You seem different." A flicker of something, pain, fear, crossed Lucas's features. "It's complicated, Nana. A lot has happened. You can tell me anything. You know that, right?" Maria leaned closer to the screen, her voice gentle but insistent. Lucas opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture so reminiscent of his childhood that it made Maria's heart ache. "I don't know, Nana. After what happened last year, I don't know who I can trust anymore." "Last year?" Maria prompted, careful to keep her tone neutral despite the alarm bells ringing in her head. "What happened last year, Lucas?" The boy's face crumpled, and for a moment, Maria thought he might break down. But then, like a shutter coming down, his expression closed off. I can't talk about it. Not now. I'm sorry, Nana. I have to go." "Lucas, wait." But the screen had already gone dark, leaving Maria staring at her own reflection, pale and shaken. She sat in stunned silence, the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking away the seconds. What could have happened to change her grandson so dramatically? And why did it seem like the rest of the family was carrying on as if nothing was wrong? With trembling fingers, Maria navigated back to the family photos on social media. She scrutinized each image, looking for clues. It was then that she noticed something odd. In a photo from last Thanksgiving, posted by her daughter-in-law, the family was gathered around a lavishly set table. Everyone was smiling, raising glasses in a toast. Everyone except Lucas, who was conspicuously absent. The caption read, "So thankful for family and new beginnings. Missing you, Lucas. Hope you'll join us next year when you're ready." When you're ready. Ready for what? Maria's mind raced. Something had clearly happened, something that had torn her family apart. And somehow she had been kept in the dark. As the reality of the situation sank in, Maria felt a resolve strengthen within her. She may be old, she may be out of touch with this new digital world, but she was still a grandmother. And grandmothers don't give up on their grandchildren. Setting her jaw with determination, Maria picked up her tablet once more. If her family wouldn't give her answers, she would find them herself. One way or another, she would uncover the truth and bring her grandson and her family back together. Little did Maria know, her quest for answers would unearth secrets that would shake her family to its very core, testing bonds of love and trust in ways she could never have imagined. The journey ahead would be fraught with heartache and revelation, but Maria Thompson was ready to face it head-on. For Lucas, for her family, for the love that had always been the bedrock of her existence. As she began her search, the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across her living room. A new day had dawned, and with it, the first chapter in a story that would change everything. The soft glow of the tablet illuminated Maria's face in the darkening living room. Outside, the streetlights flickered to life one by one, casting long shadows across her neatly trimmed lawn. She had been hunched over the device for hours, her arthritic fingers swiping and tapping with a determination that belied her years. "Come on, Lucas," she muttered, refreshing his profile for the umpteenth time. "Talk to me, sweetheart." But Lucas remained silent, his last cryptic message hanging in the chat like an unanswered question. Maria's eyes stung from the strain, but she couldn't bring herself to look away. Every post, every comment, every tagged photo might hold a clue to unraveling the mystery that had consumed her thoughts. As she scrolled through months of family posts, a pattern began to emerge. It was subtle at first, like a whisper in a crowded room. But the more she looked, the clearer it became. The change had happened suddenly about a year ago. Before that, Lucas had been present in family gatherings, his smile bright, his arm often slung around his cousin's shoulders. And then, nothing. Maria's brow furrowed as she noticed a post from her daughter-in-law, Sarah, dated last July. It was a photo of a family barbecue, everyone gathered around a picnic table laden with food. The caption read, "Family time is the best time. Wish you were here, Lucas. We're all thinking of you." The comments section was a flurry of well wishes and heart emojis, but one caught Maria's eye. It was from Emma, Lucas's sister. "Mom, maybe we shouldn't post about Lucas right now. You know how sensitive the situation is." The situation? What situation? Maria's heart raced as she dug deeper, looking for any mention of what might have happened. But it was as if the family had entered into a silent agreement. Lucas was mentioned only in passing, always with a vague sense of concern or hope for his return, but never with any explanation. Frustrated, Maria set the tablet aside and reached for her address book. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dialed a number she hadn't called in years. "Hello?" A familiar voice answered after several rings. "Marge? It's Maria Thompson. I hope I'm not calling too late." "Maria, goodness, it's been ages. Is everything all right?" Marge Johnson had been Maria's closest friend for decades, until a petty argument over a church bake sale had driven a wedge between them. Now, Maria swallowed her pride, desperation overriding old grudges. "I'm sorry to bother you, Marge, but I need to ask you something. It's about Lucas." There was a pause on the other end of the line, heavy with unspoken words. "Oh, Maria," Marge finally said, her voice softening. "I'd heard rumors, but I didn't want to pry. How are you holding up?" Maria's grip on the phone tightened. "Holding up? Marge, I don't even know what's happening. No one will tell me anything. I was hoping... Well, I thought maybe you might have heard something." Another pause, longer this time. When Marge spoke again, her words came slowly, as if she were choosing them with great care. "Maria, honey, are you telling me you don't know about the incident at last year's family reunion?" "Incident?" Maria's voice quavered. "What incident?" Marge sighed heavily. "Oh Lord, I shouldn't be the one to tell you this. But if no one else will..." "Maria, there was an accusation made against Lucas. Something about a theft during the reunion. I don't know all the details, but from what I heard, it caused quite the uproar." The room seemed to spin around Maria as the implications of Marge's words sank in. "A theft? But that's impossible. Lucas would never..." "I know, dear, That boy wouldn't hurt a fly. But you know how people can be, how rumors can spread. From what I understand, the family was pretty divided over it. Some believed Lucas, others, well, they weren't so sure. Tears welled up in Maria's eyes, a mixture of shock, anger, and heartbreak. And no one thought to tell me? His own grandmother. I'm so sorry, Maria. I assumed you knew. I thought maybe that's why you'd been keeping to yourself lately. The conversation continued for a few more minutes, but Maria barely heard a word. Her mind was reeling, trying to reconcile this new information with the grandson she knew and loved. As she hung up the phone, a cold determination settled over her. She turned back to the tablet, seeing the family photos with new eyes. The forced smiles, the careful captions, the glaring absence of Lucas. It all made a terrible kind of sense now. "Oh, Lucas," she whispered to the empty room. "What have they done to you?" With shaking hands, she typed out a new message to her grandson. "Lucas, sweetheart, I know something happened last year, something that's torn this family apart. I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. Please, let me help." As she hit send, Maria made a silent vow. She would get to the bottom of this no matter what it took. She would find out who had accused Lucas and why, and she would not rest until her family was whole again. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed midnight, its sound echoing through the quiet house. But for Maria, the night was far from over. She had work to do, truths to uncover, and a grandson to save. As she began her search anew, fueled by a grandmother's love and a determination that age had only strengthened, Maria didn't realize that her quest for the truth would unearth secrets far darker and more complex than she could have imagined. The journey ahead would test not only her resolve but the very foundations of her family. But Maria Thompson was ready. For Lucas, for justice, for the love that had always been her guiding light, she would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The truth was out there, hidden in the fragments of social media posts and family secrets. And Maria was determined to piece it all together, no matter the cost. The early morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow on Maria's weary face. She hadn't slept, her mind a whirlwind of questions and half-formed theories. The tablet lay on her lap, its screen a mosaic of open tabs and social media profiles. Maria rubbed her tired eyes, reaching for the lukewarm cup of coffee on the side table. As she took a sip, her gaze fell on an old photo album peeking out from the bookshelf. A spark of inspiration hit her. "Sometimes," she murmured to herself, "the past holds the key to the present." With renewed energy, Maria set aside the tablet and pulled the heavy album onto her lap. The leather cover was worn, the pages yellowed with age. As she flipped through the memories, a lifetime unfolded before her eyes. There was Lucas as a toddler, his chubby hands reaching for the camera. Another showed him at his 10th birthday, proudly holding up a model airplane he had built with his grandfather. Page after page told the story of a happy, loving child. But it was a photo near the back that made Maria pause. It was from the last family reunion before the incident, taken just over a year ago. The entire Thompson clan was gathered on the sprawling lawn of her son Robert's house in Atlanta. Maria's finger traced the faces, noting the subtle dynamics she hadn't seen before. Lucas stood slightly apart from the group, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Next to him, his cousin Bethany seemed to be leaning away, her expression tight. And there, in the background, was Maria's younger son, Thomas, watching Lucas with an unreadable look. What happened after this photo was taken? Maria wondered aloud. Her reverie was interrupted by a soft ping from her tablet. Heart racing, she picked it up to find a new message from Lucas. "Nana, I don't know how much you know, but it's complicated. Can we talk? Not online. In person." Maria's fingers flew across the screen, her reply immediate. "Of course, sweetheart. Anytime. Where?" The response came quickly. "The old treehouse. Tomorrow at noon. Please don't tell anyone." A mix of relief and apprehension washed over Maria. The old treehouse was in the woods behind her property, a relic from when her children were young. It had been Lucas's favorite hiding spot as a child. As Maria prepared for bed that night, her mind raced with possibilities. What would Lucas tell her? Was he ready to reveal the truth about what had happened? The next day dawned bright and clear, a crisp fall morning in suburban Birmingham. Maria made her way slowly through the overgrown path to the treehouse, her cane helping her navigate the uneven ground. Lucas was already there, sitting on the wooden platform, his lanky frame hunched over. When he saw Maria approaching, he scrambled down to help her. "Nana," he said softly, embracing her. "Thank you for coming." Maria cupped his face in her hands, noting the dark circles under his eyes, the worry lines that had no place on a 17-year-old's face. "Oh, Lucas, my sweet boy, what's happened to you?" They settled on a fallen log, the old treehouse creaking above them. Lucas took a deep breath, his hands fidgeting in his lap. "Nana, at the reunion last year, something was stolen. Aunt Catherine's diamond necklace. The one that's been in the family for generations." Maria nodded, remembering the exquisite piece of jewelry. "And they accused you?" Lucas's eyes filled with tears. "Yeah. Bethany said she saw me near Aunt Catherine's room right before it went missing. And then Dad found the empty box in my backpack." "But you didn't do it," Maria stated, no trace of doubt in her voice. "No," Lucas exclaimed, his voice cracking. "Nana, I swear I didn't. But no one believed me, not even Mom and Dad. They all looked at me like I was a criminal." Maria's heart broke for her grandson. She reached out, taking his trembling hands in hers. "I believe you, Lucas, and we're going to get to the bottom of this." Lucas looked at her, hope and fear warring in his eyes. "But how? It's been a year. The necklace is still missing. Everyone's moved on except me. I'm the family pariah now." Maria's jaw set with determination. "Not everyone has moved on. I'm here now, and I'm not going to rest until we clear your name." As they talked, Lucas revealed more details about that fateful day. The whispered accusations, the shocked faces, the painful silence that followed. Maria listened, her mind piecing together the fragments of truth. "Lucas," she said finally, "I need you to trust me. I'm going to do some digging, talk to some people. We're going to find out who really took that necklace." Lucas nodded, a glimmer of his old self shining through. "Okay, Nana, I trust you." As they made their way back to the house, Maria's mind was already formulating a plan. She would need to be careful, tactful in her inquiries, but she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter where it led. What Maria didn't realize was that her investigation would unearth far more than a missing necklace. Family secrets, long-buried resentments, and shocking betrayals were about to come to light. The Thompson family was sitting on a powder keg of secrets, and Maria's search for the truth was about to light the fuse. As she waved goodbye to Lucas, watching him drive away in his beat-up car, Maria steeled herself for what was to come. For the sake of her grandson, for the sake of justice, she would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The truth was out there, hidden in the echoes of the past and the silence of the present. And Maria Thompson was determined to bring it into the light, no matter the cost. Little did she know, the journey ahead would test not only her resolve but the very foundations of her family. The road to the truth was paved with heartache, but Maria was ready to walk it, one step at a time. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Maria's living room as she sat at her desk, surrounded by a sea of papers, old photos, and her ever-present tablet. Her eyes, tired but determined, scanned through years of family history spread out before her. "There has to be something here," she muttered, pushing a strand of silver hair behind her ear. "Some clue we've all missed." Maria had spent the past week discreetly reaching out to family members, piecing together the events of that fateful reunion. Each conversation revealed a new fragment of the puzzle, but the full picture remained frustratingly elusive. A soft ping from her tablet drew her attention. It was a message from Emma, Lucas's sister. "Hey Nana, just checking in. You've been asking a lot of questions lately. Is everything okay?" Maria's fingers hovered over the screen, weighing her response carefully. She couldn't risk alerting the family to her investigation, not when she was so close to what? She wasn't even sure what she was looking for anymore. Just trying to catch up on everyone's lives. Sweetheart, she typed back. I've been out of touch for too long. As she hit send, a nagging thought tugged at the back of her mind. Emma had been strangely quiet about the whole incident with Lucas. Could she know more than she was letting on? Maria's contemplation was interrupted by the shrill ring of her landline. The caller ID displayed a name that made her heart skip a beat. Thomas, her younger son and Lucas's uncle. Mom! Thomas's voice was tense as soon as she answered. We need to talk. I'm coming over. Before Maria could respond, the line went dead. She sat back, a mixture of anticipation and dread washing over her. Thomas had always been the more volatile of her two sons, quick to anger and slow to forgive. What could have prompted this sudden visit? 30 minutes later, a car door slammed in the driveway. Maria steeled herself as heavy footsteps approached her front door. Thomas burst into the living room, his face a storm of emotions. Mom, what are you doing? Why are you digging up the past? Maria met his gaze steadily. Hello to you too, Thomas. Would you like some tea? Her calm demeanor seemed to throw him off balance. He ran a hand through his graying hair, visibly trying to compose himself. Mom, please. This isn't a social call. I've been hearing things. You've been asking questions about Lucas, about the reunion. Why? Maria's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Because, Thomas, something isn't right. My grandson has been ostracized for over a year, and I want to know why. Thomas's face darkened. We've been through this, Mom. Lucas stole Aunt Catherine's necklace. End of story. Is it? Maria challenged, rising from her chair. Despite her small stature, she seemed to fill the room with her presence. Because from what I've gathered, there's a lot more to this story than anyone's telling me. For a moment, something flickered in Thomas's eyes. Fear? Guilt? But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a hard anger. Leave it alone, Mom, he growled. You have no idea what you're getting into. Some things are better left in the past. Maria took a step closer to her son, her voice low and intense. Not when they're destroying my family, Thomas. Not when they're ruining a young man's life. What aren't you telling me? The tension in the room was palpable, like a taut wire ready to snap. Thomas opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Mom, please, for your own good, drop this. You don't want to know the truth. It'll tear this family apart. Maria's heart raced, but her voice remained steady. This family is already torn apart, Thomas, and I intend to put it back together, with or without your help. They stood there, mother and son, locked in a silent battle of wills. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked away the seconds, each one feeling like an eternity. Finally, Thomas turned away, his shoulders slumping in defeat. Fine, do what you have to do, but don't say I didn't warn you. As he stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him, Maria sank back into her chair, her heart pounding. Thomas's reaction had confirmed her suspicions. There was far more to this story than a simple theft. She turned back to her desk, to the scattered pieces of her family's history. Somewhere in this mess of memories and secrets lay the truth, and Maria was more determined than ever to find it. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the room in shadows, Maria reached for her tablet once more. Her fingers flew across the screen as she typed out a message to Lucas. Sweetheart, I think I'm getting close, but I need your help. Can you meet me tomorrow? There's something I need to show you. The reply came almost instantly. Of course, Nana. I'll be there. Maria sat back, her mind racing with possibilities. Tomorrow, she would share her findings with Lucas. Together, they would take the next step in unraveling this mystery. What she didn't know was that her actions had set in motion a chain of events that would shake the Thompson family to its core. Long-buried secrets were about to come to light, and the truth, when finally revealed, would be more shocking than anyone could have imagined. As night fell over the quiet suburban street, Maria Thompson prepared herself for what was to come. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with emotional landmines and painful revelations. But for the sake of justice, for the love of her grandson, she would walk it to the end. The truth was within reach, hidden in the shadows of the past and the silence of the present. And Maria was determined to bring it into the light, no matter the cost. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows, casting a warm glow on Maria's face as she bustled about, preparing a spread of Lucas's favorite foods. Blueberry pancakes sizzled on the griddle, their sweet aroma mingling with the rich scent of freshly brewed coffee. Despite the cheerful domestic scene, tension thrummed through Maria's veins like an electric current. Today was the day. The day she would share her findings with Lucas. The day they would take the next step towards uncovering the truth that had torn their family apart. The doorbell chimed, startling Maria from her thoughts. She smoothed her apron and took a deep breath before opening the door. Lucas stood on the porch, his lanky frame hunched as if trying to make himself smaller. Dark circles rimmed his eyes, a testament to sleepless nights and constant worry. But when he saw Maria, a ghost of his old smile flitted across his face. "Hi, Nana," he said softly, stepping into her embrace. Maria hugged him tightly, feeling the rapid beat of his heart against her chest. "Oh, sweetheart, come in, come in. I've made your favorites." As they settled at the kitchen table, Maria watched Lucas pick at his food, his eyes darting nervously around the room. She reached across the table, gently clasping his hand. "Lucas," she began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "I've been doing some digging, and I think I've found something important." Lucas's fork clattered to his plate. What did you find?" Maria stood, retrieving a thick folder from the counter. "It's not just one thing, honey. It's a lot of little things that don't add up." She spread out a series of documents and photos across the table. "Look here," she pointed to a bank statement. "This is from your Aunt Catherine's account, dated 2 days after the reunion. There's a large deposit, almost exactly the value of that necklace." Lucas's brow furrowed. "But the necklace was stolen. Why would there be a deposit?" "Exactly," Maria nodded. "And look at this." She pulled out a photo from the reunion, zooming in on a detail in the background. "See Bethany here? She's wearing a necklace that looks suspiciously like the one that went missing." Lucas's eyes widened. "But she was the one who accused me." Maria's voice was gentle but firm. "I know, sweetheart, and there's more. I've been talking to family members, piecing things together. There are inconsistencies in people's stories, gaps that don't make sense." As she laid out her evidence, a complex tapestry of half-truths and hidden motives began to emerge. Lucas listened intently, his face a whirlwind of emotions. Hope, anger, disbelief. "Nana," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Are you saying I was framed?" Maria squeezed his hand. "I don't know for sure, Lucas, but I think it's time we got the whole family together and laid all of this out in the open. No more secrets, no more whispers behind closed doors." Lucas paled. "A family meeting? Nana, I don't know if I can face them all." "You can," Maria said firmly, "because this time you won't be alone. I'll be right there with you." With trembling hands, Maria reached for her phone. One by one, she called each member of the Thompson clan, her voice brooking no argument as she summoned them to her home that evening. As the day wore on, Lucas helped Maria prepare the house for the impending confrontation. They moved furniture, set out chairs, and tried to ignore the growing knot of anxiety in their stomachs. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the living room, the doorbell rang. Maria and Lucas exchanged a look, a silent promise passing between them. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The family began to file in, confusion and concern etched on their faces. Robert and Sarah, Lucas's parents, their eyes widening in surprise at seeing their son. Emma, biting her lip nervously. Thomas, his face a mask of barely contained anger. Aunt Catherine, clutching her purse tightly. And finally, Bethany, her confident stride faltering as she caught sight of Lucas. As the last person took their seat, an uneasy silence fell over the room. Maria stood, her small frame somehow commanding the attention of everyone present. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. "I've asked you here because it's time we talked about what really happened at last year's reunion." A ripple of tension passed through the room. Thomas started to stand, but Maria silenced him with a look. "For too long, we've let assumptions and accusations tear this family apart," she continued. "But I've discovered some things that I think you all need to see." As Maria began to lay out her evidence, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Shock, disbelief, and dawning realization played across faces. Voices began to rise, accusations flying. "That's impossible," Aunt Catherine exclaimed, her face pale. "You don't know what you're talking about, Mom," Robert interjected, but his voice lacked conviction. Bethany sat silent, her eyes fixed on the floor. As the chaos threatened to overwhelm the room, Lucas stood. His voice, quiet but firm, cut through the noise. "I didn't steal that necklace," he said, looking each family member in the eye. "I've said it from the beginning and it's still true. But someone in this room knows what really happened. And it's time for the truth to come out." A heavy silence fell, thick with unspoken truths and long-buried secrets. The Thompson family stood on the precipice of a revelation that would change everything. As Maria looked around at the faces of her loved ones, she knew that whatever came next, nothing would ever be the same. The truth, so long hidden, was about to come to light, and its weight would either break them apart forever or forge them anew. The clock on the mantel ticked loudly, counting down the moments until someone would break the silence and reveal the secret that had torn their family apart. Maria took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. The truth was here, in this room, waiting to be unveiled. And Maria Thompson was ready to face it, no matter the cost. The tension in Maria's living room was palpable, a thick, suffocating silence that seemed to press in from all sides. The faces of the Thompson family were a mosaic of emotions: fear, anger, guilt, and confusion. At the center of it all stood Maria, her small frame radiating a quiet strength that belied her years. "Now," Maria said, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "We're going to get to the bottom of this. No more lies, no more secrets. Who wants to start?" For a moment, no one moved. Then, to everyone's surprise, it was Bethany who spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. I have something to say." All eyes turned to the young woman, who seemed to shrink under the collective gaze of her family. Lucas, standing next to his grandmother, felt his heart race. Was this it? The moment of truth? Bethany took a shaky breath, her eyes filling with tears. I lied. Lucas didn't steal the necklace. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." The room erupted into chaos. Voices raised in shock, disbelief, and anger. Maria raised her hand, silencing the outcry with a stern look. "Let her speak," Maria commanded, her eyes never leaving Bethany's face. Bethany's words came out in a rush, as if a dam had broken. "It was me. I took the necklace. I was in debt, I needed money, and I panicked. When Aunt Catherine noticed it was missing, I blamed Lucas. I thought no one would believe him over me." Lucas felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. A year of pain, isolation, and self-doubt crashed over him like a wave. He staggered back, steadied only by Maria's firm hand on his arm. "But why?" Robert, Lucas's father, demanded. "Why maintain the lie for so long?" Bethany's sobs grew louder. "I was scared, and then it got so big I didn't know how to take it back. I'm so sorry, Lucas. I'm so sorry, everyone." The room fell into stunned silence, broken only by Bethany's quiet sobs. Maria looked around at her family, seeing the shock and disbelief on their faces. But there was something else, something that didn't quite add up. "There's more to this story," Maria said quietly, her eyes scanning the room. "Isn't there, Thomas?" All eyes turned to Thomas, who had remained unnaturally quiet throughout the revelation. His face was a mask of barely contained emotion, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Mom, don't," he warned, but Maria pressed on. "You knew, didn't you? You knew it wasn't Lucas." Thomas's composure finally broke. "Of course I knew," he shouted, jumping to his feet. "I caught Bethany trying to pawn the necklace. But by then, Lucas had already been accused. The family was falling apart. I thought it would be better to let it lie, to protect Bethany and keep the family together." The room exploded into chaos once more. Accusations flew, tears were shed, and years of pent-up emotions came pouring out. In the midst of it all, Maria noticed Lucas slip quietly out of the room. She followed him onto the back porch, where he stood staring out into the darkening evening. "Lucas," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. He turned to her, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. "A year, Nana. A whole year of my life. Gone. Because of a lie." Maria pulled him into a fierce hug, feeling his body shake with silent sobs. "I know, sweetheart. I know. But it's over now. The truth is out." As they stood there, the sounds of the continuing confrontation drifted out from the house. Maria knew that there would be more to face, more truths to uncover, more healing to be done. But for now, she held her grandson, offering what comfort she could. Inside, the family grappled with the weight of the revelations. Bethany sat crumpled in a chair, her face buried in her hands. Thomas stood in a corner, his face a mask of shame and defiance. Robert and Sarah clung to each other, their world upended by the truth. As the night wore on, hard conversations were had. Apologies were made, some accepted, others not. The fabric of the Thompson family, so long strained by lies and suspicion, began the slow, painful process of mending. It was past midnight when the last family member left. Maria stood in the doorway, watching as cars pulled away, carrying shell-shocked passengers into the night. Lucas came to stand beside her, his eyes red-rimmed but clear. "What happens now, Nana?" he asked, his voice hoarse from emotion. Maria turned to him, cupping his face in her weathered hands. "Now, my brave boy, we heal. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. But we're Thompsons. We're strong. We'll get through this together." As they closed the door on the tumultuous night, Maria felt a mixture of exhaustion and hope. The truth had finally come to light, painful and messy as it was. But with truth came the possibility of forgiveness, of rebuilding what had been broken. The road ahead would be long and difficult. Trust, once shattered, is not easily regained. But as Maria looked at Lucas, seeing a glimmer of his old self returning, she knew it was a road worth traveling. The Thompson family had been tested, pushed to its breaking point by lies and betrayal. But in the end, love and truth had prevailed. And in that, Maria found hope for the future. As she prepared for bed, emotionally drained but oddly at peace, Maria whispered a quiet prayer of thanks. The truth had been heavy, its weight nearly crushing them all. But in bearing that weight together, they had found strength they never knew they had. The dawn of a new day was approaching, bringing with it the promise of healing, forgiveness, and a family reborn from the ashes of deceit. And Maria Thompson, the matriarch who had set it all in motion, was ready to lead her family into that new dawn, one step at a time. The soft morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a gentle glow on Maria's living room. The chaos of the previous night had subsided, leaving behind an eerie calm that felt both unsettling and promising. Maria sat in her favorite armchair, a cup of tea cooling beside her, as she gazed at the family photos lining the mantel. Each smiling face now held a different meaning, a complexity that hadn't been there before. The truth had come at a high cost, and the path to healing would be long and arduous. A gentle knock at the door roused Maria from her contemplation. She opened it to find Lucas standing there, his eyes tired but clearer than they had been in months. "Morning, Nana," he said softly, stepping inside. "I hope it's okay that I came by." Maria pulled him into a warm embrace. Of course it is, sweetheart. This is your home too, always. They settled in the kitchen, the familiar routine of making breakfast providing a semblance of normalcy. As Lucas helped flip pancakes, Maria couldn't help but notice the weight that seemed to have lifted from his shoulders. "How are you feeling?" she asked, watching him carefully. Lucas paused, considering the question. "Honestly, I'm not sure. Relieved, angry, sad. It's all mixed up. But for the first time in a year, I feel like I can breathe." Maria nodded, understanding the complexity of emotions he was grappling with. "It's okay to feel all of that, Lucas. Healing takes time." As they ate, the conversation drifted to the aftermath of the revelation. Lucas's phone had been buzzing non-stop with messages from family members. Apologies, explanations, pleas for forgiveness. "I don't know if I can forgive them, Nana," Lucas admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not yet, anyway." Maria reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. You don't have to do it all at once. What matters is that you're open to the possibility." Their quiet moment was interrupted by another knock at the door. This time it was Robert and Sarah, Lucas's parents. The atmosphere instantly tensed as they entered, their faces etched with guilt and sorrow. "Lucas," Sarah began, her voice choked with emotion. We don't even know where to begin." Robert stepped forward, his usual confidence replaced by a palpable uncertainty. "Son, we failed you. We should have believed you, should have fought harder to uncover the truth. We can never make up for this past year, but we want to try. If you'll let us." Lucas stood frozen, a whirlwind of emotions playing across his face. Maria watched, her heart aching for her grandson and the difficult choice he faced. After what felt like an eternity, Lucas spoke, his voice trembling but firm. "I don't know if I can trust you again. Not yet, but I'm willing to try." The relief on Robert and Sarah's faces was palpable. They didn't move to embrace Lucas, respecting the distance he needed, but the air in the room shifted, charged with the potential for reconciliation. As the day progressed, more family members trickled in. Emma, tears streaming down her face as she apologized for not standing by her brother. Thomas, his usual bravado replaced by genuine remorse, as he tried to explain his misguided attempts to protect the family. Even Bethany made an appearance, though she could barely meet Lucas's eyes as she stumbled through her apology. Maria watched it all unfold, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Her family was fractured, the trust between them severely damaged. But they were here, facing the consequences of their actions, taking the first tentative steps toward healing. As evening fell, the house quieted once more. Lucas sat on the back porch, staring out at the setting sun. Maria joined him, wrapping a comforting arm around his shoulders. "It's going to be a long road, isn't it?" Lucas asked, leaning into her embrace. Maria nodded. "Yes, it will be, but you're not walking it alone. We'll take it one day at a time together." As they sat there, the weight of the past year hanging between them, Maria reflected on the price of truth. It had cost them their complacency, their blind trust, the easy relationships they had taken for granted. But in return, it had given them the chance for something deeper, more authentic. The Thompson family would never be the same. The scars of this ordeal would remain, a reminder of how easily trust can be broken and how precious it is to maintain. But as Maria looked at Lucas, saw the quiet determination in his eyes, she felt a glimmer of hope. They had weathered the storm of truth, and though battered, they had survived. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with difficult conversations and painful reckonings. But they would face it together, armed with the hard-won wisdom that comes from confronting one's deepest flaws and failures. As the last light faded from the sky, Maria and Lucas headed back inside. The house, once filled with laughter and easy companionship, now held a different kind of energy, one of cautious hope and determination to rebuild what had been broken. Maria knew that the story of her family was far from over. There would be setbacks, moments of doubt, and perhaps even more painful truths to face. But she also knew that in uncovering the lies that had torn them apart, They had laid the foundation for something stronger, more resilient. The price of redemption was high, but as Maria looked at her grandson, saw the spark of life returning to his eyes, she knew it was a price worth paying. The Thompson family had been tested, pushed to its very limits. But in the end, love, truth, and the unbreakable bond of family had prevailed. As she closed the door on another tumultuous day, Maria sent up a quiet prayer of thanks. The road ahead would be long and challenging, but they would walk it together, one step at a time, towards healing, forgiveness, and a future built on honesty and trust. Thank you very much for listening to this story. Comment below what you thought of the ending and from which city you're listening to us. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, click on the next story that's appearing on your screen now. Leave your like and subscribe to our channel so we can build a huge community that shares inspiring stories together. See you soon.